Alright, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. Another panel review. This one's pretty juicy too. Ooh. So this is Justice League Battle for Metropolis, opened in 2016. This is the Great America version, but they're all the same. This is Magic Mountain, same as ours. I've been on the one at Magic Mountain, and I've been on the one at Great America. So let's take a look at the panel. So most of the functionality is in the screen, so we'll get to that in a second. So panel enable, that turns the panel on and off. The modes, off, auto, or maintenance. Ride is always in automatic mode. Maintenance enable, that would turn on all these extra screens down here. These are the ones that the operators have access to. So building, you could turn on lights, stuff like that, view statuses of certain infrastructure inside the building. Lap bars, let's see if I got a picture of that. Yeah, so this is what you're seeing when the cars, the RVs are coming through. And so actually, unlike a roller coaster, the entire length of the ride, the computer can tell if a lap bar is open. And a pretty common downtime at this ride was someone would be able to fit, just barely fit. And so the sensor would say that it was okay on here, and so you'd send the car out, and then halfway through the car, when it jerks around at a certain scene every single time, that person would then put some of their force up on the lap bar, and it would pop it like a millimeter up into the open position. That would cause an alarm. But anyway, so they come in. This is the status when they're open. They automatically unlock, and then they lock once they get to a certain point. And then if you want to open up a lap bar, you push this. So this the front controls, and these are the back controls. And so command is just the command that's being sent, and position is the actual position that it is. So you can see that this one, the command is sent to close, but the lap bar is still open. So that's why it's like that. And so when this ride first opened, it operated a little bit differently than it does today. So I'm going to talk about how it used to run, and then in a little bit we'll talk about what they changed. And so the cars, the only thing you ever did as an operator, besides open lap bars, if someone needed a lap bar opened, was you would press this dispatch button. And so the RVs pull in, and they just drive through, and then once they get to this point, they'll stop, the dispatch button will flash, and you have to dispatch it out. And I can't remember the exact blocking, but you could only, I believe it was once the car in front, the car that was sent out, I believe once it got past door 2, it would let you send another one out. And you could have, on this model, you could have up to 9. So there are only 8 on this one today. But if you look on here, you can see that I think that the Over Texas version, or not over, yeah, the first one that opened, I think that one has 10. And so it's just automatically, they just brought the control system over, so there's a 10th car in here. I believe that the cars are about 1. But anyway, yeah, so as the operator, you kind of just watch the cars diddle-daddle their way through. These right here, these are the show doors, so those open as a car goes through and then closes them so that cars can't see each other, which would ruin your immersion. So that's what this is right here, access doors. There was also a couple doors throughout the building that had sensors on them, emergency exits, so if one of those was opened while the ride was operational, it would cause an error. Flame effect. I actually really enjoyed this. So this is the flame effect screen, and this fan, when the flame is on, this fan actually spins. There's a little spinning animation. But if you're riding Justice League and the flame isn't working, 99% of the time it's just because, for whatever reason, the computer decided that there was an error at the flame effect, and all you had to do was press this button, reset request, and it would start working again. Acknowledge, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, so acknowledge was when the person at enable, which is at the unload position, if they press the station start. I believe you pressed acknowledge to start the station. And anytime the station was stopped while the operators were running the ride, the person at the back had to confirm to start the station. And then, so over here, so this station stop stops all the cars just in the station. All the other ones will continue to go around. Ride stop is interesting because it doesn't stop them right away. It stops a car at its nearest, um, I can't remember what we called them, maybe control point, but it was basically the area that the camera was looking at because there's a wall of monitors. I don't know if I've got a picture of it. But to the right of the operator, you've got a wide array of cameras. And so when you press the ride stop, all the cars would stop in position so a camera could see them. If you hit the E stop, that cut power to the track, and all the cars would just stop right where they were. Another interesting little tidbit, because this ride's so smart, is if a fire alarm goes off inside the building, after 30 seconds, the lap bars on all the cars throughout the building actually open up automatically. So that's kind of interesting. Cool little safety feature. But yeah, you can see the status of all the things going off. So as they go by, things go off. So yeah, like the thing that honks at you, that's over there. Certain effects, the drums that fall on you, that's what that is. So these are all the scenes: 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is that final part where you come around, and so the cabin laser actually shoots when there's a car back here. A laser shoots at it in about right here, and it can tell where the exact position is that the car is facing forward. And that was important because you didn't want a car to come in sideways or something because the station floor is right there. Had to come in straight. And there was an annoying bug when this ride first opened. I mean, maybe it still exists because they never fixed it that I know of. But car number 7, every time it got to this point, even though it was facing forward and it could just pull in or rotate about 4 degrees to the left, instead it would sit there, and every single time that it came back, it would rotate a full 360 degrees the opposite way of which it was supposed to go. So that was quite annoying because then cars would back up behind it. And so this right here, it's called the Cascade Step. And so if the station's backed up, cars will start stopping at their scenes. And so one stops here at the zero prox, one starts here, one stops here, so you can have a car waiting and a car looking at the finishing screen where it tells you the high score and all that. And then you could have another one here. So if there was ever a time where someone was taking unusually long to load into a car, usually people would stop back here. And there was some bug when it first opened, I remember, because it was always a pain when they all stacked up, especially when you had all 9. It wasn't that difficult to stack them up. And if you did that, then the people that came from show 9, they got stopped here because there was a car in show 10. Once they got to show 10, they would just be in front of an empty screen and nothing would happen. So airbags, so underneath, so the airbags are actually, so there's tires obviously that go on the ground, but then there's also tires that squeeze this track right here, and that's what drives it forward and back. And there's airbags that give pressure to the wheels, so that they can stay attached to this. And the reason you would want access to the airbag screen is because a lot of times they would be leaking or something, so not properly filled. And so on this screen, all the cars are red, and that's because the ride is stopped. If the car is having issues, like let's say the airbag is low, it'll be traveling around blinking yellow, so you'd call that in. Warnings, so yeah, there were warnings and then there were alarms. So warnings would be like RV6 low airbag. So if there was a warning, the ride could continue to operate, whatever. If there was an alarm, the ride would stop. And depending on what type of alarm was, it would either be a ride stop and they all stop in front of a camera, or it'd be an e-stop and everything would turn off, the lights would turn on, music would stop, all that. And so something interesting though was when you hit the e-stop, it actually didn't really technically cut power to the ride, because if the situation ever happened where someone fell onto the track or something, you were supposed to press an e-stop and then you were supposed to switch the track power off on a separate switch. Yeah, the track power lockout. And so this right here, if you ever needed to go inside the building, you had to turn the track power off. You don't want to get zapped by the high voltage running through there that's pushing those heavy vehicles through. And then show power disconnect would just turn off all the show elements. And I don't have a picture, but over by the flame effect, there's another panel with lockouts and stuff on it, so you can adjust just the flame effect. What's this screen? Oh yeah, so this is the building screen. So you could turn on or off the lights. And when you turned on the lights, or turned off the lights when they were on, it actually took a little bit, and that was called pulsing. Like it would turn off certain zones, and then it would all go dark, and then boop, everything would turn on real quick. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. It has its own, the fire alarm is tied into the ride system, so it can automatically let people out. These are the lockout statuses. And then so these building spiels, they never worked. There was nothing happened when you push these. I'm sure there was some sort of spiel they wanted to put in with the Justice League saying the ride was having issues, but that never happened. But so the way it works now, so the way back then was it would come and park right here, and then you dispatch it forward. The way it works now is I believe that the dispatch spot is all the way up at the loading gates. And so the way it's supposed to work is every single car is supposed to stop, you put them on, and then once they're good to go, you dispatch them individually. Because when it first opened, it was kind of just a continuously moving station. Because if the ride was ready to dispatch before the car had reached this point, you could push the button and they would just take off from wherever it was. I'm not sure what this screen is, but there were hundreds of maintenance screens because this, I mean, very complex ride. And so one of the issues, I mean, one of the points of issues with this thing, I mean, it was going down so much, it was usually a fat person. That would cause the ride to go down a lot. But it's also, so all these cars are actually on a Wi-Fi network. So that's how it communicates with the control system. There's no wired communication on the track. It's all wireless. And so if there was spotty Wi-Fi for whatever reason, and it lost communication with the car, that would usually cause an error. And these blasters, oh my god, they did not last. I think even on the first day we had a couple tied off already. And it's multiple systems that work together, because there's the system that controls the ride system and all that, system that controls the cars, the system that controls the video game aspect of it and keeps track of all the scores and all that. And then there was the system that controlled all of the show elements, and those things all had to work together. And Magic Mountain, they had a little bit extra. You had to go through all these pre-shows. I remember, even though we were the only ones there, they forced us to watch each pre-show. And their station's a little cooler. A little bit more well laid out. And their panel is exactly the same, ride system's exactly the same. All that's different is the ride itself is a little bit different. And so if a ride stop was pressed, you could push a ride start and everything would just resume automatically. But yeah, so this is one of those rides where it's very complex internally. There's a lot going on, but for an operator, it was so simple. I mean, this ride was so boring. It was the first ride we ever let someone sit down at operator. It's the first ride we gave a chair to, because all you did was just push this dispatch button over and over and over, pushing these cars through. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's about all I can remember. I did open this ride. I was the supervisor of this area when the ride opened, so I was here a lot. I remember when it first opened, we had a lot of downtime issues, and it was usually just like little things, little sensors would get tripped up, but it was usually we'd fill up the page, we'd fill up the sheet that you write down the downtimes on, we'd fill it up, and have to start a new one on a daily basis. It was pretty ridiculous how often this ride went down. Very terrible downtime. And I know the St. Louis one had it even rougher. I think they had like less than 50% uptime. But yeah, I'm trying to remember anything else about this ride. It was pretty simple to operate. Um, and I don't have a ton of good pictures of it just because I wasn't all that interested in it. I thought that for the money they spent, because they advertised it like, this is our hypercoaster. This is the hypercoaster we're building. And I was like, you know what? I actually would rather have us have built the $20 million ride roller coaster instead of this thing. And it was also very frustrating because it was very low capacity. And the three across was it's not built for efficiency. I mean, you got a group of two, and then you got a group of four. Well, what? You're gonna put one of the strangers next to the other two strangers, and then three back here. They usually didn't like that. And then you had people abusing the single rider line, all that. And they used really cheap paint, so people would pull paint off the wall. And there was a fire alarm in this room that had a cover on it, and if you bumped into the cover, then the fire alarm would go off, so that happened all the time. But yeah, I think that's all I got for this one. Like I said, very simple to operate, just very complex internally. But thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.